different. Are we ready? Yes. What number are we up to, Kev?
59, it's outside.
Is it?
Yep.
Hi everybody, welcome to Busybird Publishing and Open Mic Night number 59. That means next month, which is our last for the year, is our 60th open mic. That is unbelievable, isn't it? Who here thinks they've been to every one? I don't think everyone has been to every one.
I have.
No, you haven't.
No, you haven't. You've been away.
I missed a few. Yes.
No, I don't think anyone has been to every single one, but anyway, including me.
That's true.
I missed 2. So, while I was in Spain, yes. So, for those of you who haven't been, I have my little list here, but just because you put it in a certain spot doesn't mean we're going in this order. I tend to break it up depending on what is being read, because we don't want, 10 poems and then a whole lot of, so I try and mix it up. If you haven't put your name down because you haven't been before and you wanted to check it out if we're really evil or not, and whether you thought we might be scary, I will give you an opportunity to, at the end, to put your hand up if you do want to read, if you haven't put your name on the list. I'd like to think that we are a welcoming group and that it's not scary, but getting up in front of people to read your work is a really vital thing to do to improve your writing for many reasons. One is it helps you with your presentation skills. The other is when you read and even if you did this at home, reading your work to yourself aloud is actually a really valuable way of hearing what works and what doesn't work, because you'll stumble over words that don't work well, and you'll stumble over, really long sentences or too short sentences, all those sorts of things. You get the rhythm and everything when you read it aloud. So, my name is Blaise van Hecke. On the camera is Kev Howlett. He's the other half of Busybird Publishing. So he's obviously going to be recording all of the readings, and they go up on YouTube. So if you don't want to be on YouTube, please let him know so that he doesn't film you. Or he can still film you, and if you want a copy of it you can, but just let him know either way so he knows. So I don't know if the very first one was up. Yeah, I think the first one is up. So every open mic night is actually up on YouTube. So you can actually go back and have a look at them if you want to. So, Les Zig is our publications manager and an author, and he's our timekeeper. So we're going to go for 5 minutes each tonight, Les. So at 4.5 minutes, Les will give you 1 ding. That's to give you warning that you have 30 seconds left. At the end of 5 minutes, he will double ding. That means you should try and finish the sentence that you're on. Not keep reading if you think, I've got another page or half a page. Only because if we do that, if everyone does that, we're here till midnight. We don't like timing it actually, but in the days when we didn't, sometimes people would take 20 minutes, sometimes people would take 1 minute. It wasn't very fair. So, if you go over the 5 minutes, what will Les do?
Somebody here who knows they're going to get free dings. You know who you are. Come and drag you off the stage. You know who you are.
With the 2 demerit points.
That's just general. Now they're all paranoid.
We actually also have a really vicious dog that you will have seen him before. He will go into attack mode. So, you all got a ticket when you arrived. That's for the door prize. We're actually giving 3 door prizes tonight. One of them is Les's book, this one, the soft copy. It is in hard copy, but that's a special edition, so we're not giving that away, but you can have a soft copy. So that's Les's novel. And we have these 2 books. One is called Healthy Body, one is Healthy Mind. They're part of a series. And we are about to launch number 3, which is Healthy Spirit. You will have seen invitations on some of your chairs. So that is going to be launched on the 4th of December here, which you're all welcome to come if you want to. So these are all have multiple authors, so they're co-authored by a group of people all around these topics. How do you keep a healthy body? How do you keep a healthy mind, etc. So 3 prizes. So don't lose your ticket. So I am going to start. I think you're. Didn't mean to shock you then. We'll start with you because I think it's appropriate that you go first.
As a result, Busybird Publishing is a finalist! Yay! Thank you. That's it.
We find out next Wednesday.
Yay!
So we're going to a dinner and they announce. And our 2 other finalists are pharmacists. So we're going to order a drug test if they win.
Kev mentioned in the office during the week that it's actually really difficult for a business like ours to compete against businesses that have general foot traffic like butchers and retail outlets. So that tells a lot about our tribe and how much of a community we have going and how much we all talk to each other, whether it's here in an environment like this or online. We're all extremely connected and something like this really highlights that. Again, thank you.
Even if we don't win, we still get a little frame thing saying finalists, so that's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. Okay, Rebecca Heyman has a story called Enough. We haven't seen Rebecca for a while. Maybe she'll tell us where she's been.
I wish I could make up some exciting place I've been, but no, I haven't. First up, I have a book launch coming up. If anyone's interested, I have flyers.
When is it?
7th of November. And this piece is actually a companion piece, I guess, to the novel. Enough. Lao Huang loved the word enough. He loved its shape. Enough was round, like a belly full of rice and pork, not hollow, like a belly full of worms. He loved its colour. Enough was blue, like the rain after the wind has blown away the rain. How can it be blue, Grandpa? Words don't have colour. Lao Huang turned his watery eyes on his little grandson. Children knew so much, but saw so little. He patted the boy's head. Life gives them colour, you'll see. By the time you are my age, most words are like rainbows. Children were respectful and never said, "That's daft," but they said it in the tilt of their head. Parents could not scold you for tilting your head. "Bye, Grandpa," the boy chirped, and Lao Huang settled back against the sun-warmed stone wall. He had a cushion these days to soften the granite bench, and it felt comfortable just to let his eyes droop. What he loved most about the word enough was that it was another word for peace. Enough meant that rest was attainable, contentment was real, and fear could no longer rule. It was quite a burden for one word, but enough was sturdy. Enough mingled with the memories of his early childhood. The cleaver beat out its sound in the rhythmic chopping of garlic on the board. Food, food, food is coming. That's what enough said. In this way, enough took on smell, the smell of garlic frying, and sound, the hiss of vegetables hitting the hot oil. Enough entwined with any and every memory of his mother, like snuggling against his mother's body on a cold night, for instance. That was enough. Like the rice porridge she stirred on the stove when he got up in the morning. That was enough. Like being loved. That was enough. But he had been a child, not so very different from his own grandchildren, and back then, enough had been colourless for him too. It had been so familiar as to be scandalously unspecial. It took want to teach him the depth of enough. The morning Huang woke to hear no sound of cleaver and no smell of garlic. The moment when the warm body beside him was cold and there was only grey rain outside. This was the day he began to learn about enough. This era of want began ironically, with being unwanted. He had not realised that little boys could be categorised according to monetary value. Previously, he'd been under the impression that little boys could be naughty or good, but apparently they could also be bought and sold. In the era of want, enough was fleeting, like the ray of sun which sometimes managed to slip through the grimy window and creep up onto the table where he worked. Sometimes it snuck over the sewing machine to touch his face. In the era of want, enough took on another sound, though he only ever heard it once. It was the sound of strength. At first it was merely an argument leaking in through closed doors. The man said Huang could sew more t-shirts in a week. The man said he was lazy. He said he would order more material. The woman said he was only a child. She said he was not to be made to do more. She said it was enough. When Huang went to bed that night, sleeping alone in his outhouse, he took enough with him and considered its strength. It was so strong. It was the last word, commanding silence. It was so strong, it protected him. There would be no more t-shirts. That was the power of enough. Alone at night on his pallet, half musing, he thought to himself that enough sounded almost exactly like love. Years later, as a teenager, he ran away. In this new era, fear taught him things about enough he had never thought of before. Had he run far enough? Was this new city big enough to hide him? Had enough time elapsed? Could he stop looking over his shoulder? Or would they still be looking for him? Huang also developed a new dimension to his relationship with enough. Previously, enough had either happened or not happened, been there or not been there. Yeah, I've got that half page.
Table up there.
Yes.
If anyone wants to, where is it going to be?
At the library.
Eltham?
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, Rebecca. Veronica. Where's Veronica sitting? I can't see. Oh, up the back. Oh, now, I don't know if anyone saw this little monkey, but Veronica gave me this monkey. I have a feeling I'm going to find out a bit more about monkeys because her story is called Monkey Lady. So welcome, Veronica. I did say Veronica could go last, but you know, now that I'm 50, I think dementia's kicking in. What's Veronica? Are these for sale? Can you buy these somewhere?
You can.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yeah.
Yeah?
What do you want to know?
Where can we get them? Is there a website
You
or?
can either get them on my website or follow me to my ute afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, much.
How much are they? Roundabout.
I can do a special Busybird Publishing tonight.
Okay.
The stripy ones can be down to $12. Like
They're
my
so
regular-
cute. It's got little.
I get regular colours as well.
Yeah.
We can do monkey business later.
Oh, okay. All right. Who shall we have next? Diane. Pasela. Short poem. Short poem.
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Hello everyone. Okay, this one's called Crossing the Road. Lollipop lady looked right, looked left and looked right again. She moved to the middle of the road, then blew her whistle. Mum held my hand, looked right, looked left, looked to the right again. We walked across. After school, many roads, walking, riding. I looked right, left, right. Valued memories, right, left, right. I drive across. That's that one. Yeah. This one's called Warm Soapy Water. I'll splash again to make more bubbles. Look at them all. White bubble puffs that sparkle. My hands can scoop nearly all of them. All those tiny holes. It feels like nothing, lighter than my feather. What will happen if I blow them all away? Whoops!
Jackson, have you washed your hands for dinner? What's all this?
That's it. Well done. Thanks, Jackie.
I thought you'd become a ventriloquist.
Double act.
Oh, well, we may as well follow up with you then, Jackie.
Okay.
So Jackie's going to read a story from Fear to Self-Worth.
I'm actually going to read tonight. Last 2 times I was up here, I sort of ad-libbed a bit. So I'm going to have a go at reading. And this is Diane and I and Steve and Blaise are all involved in a collaborative book project called Live Your Truth. And this is the beginning of my chapter, From Fear to Self-Worth. The main emotion that I recall from my childhood is fear. I don't remember my birth father, but apparently he was a young, angry Irishman who was away a lot. His relationship with my mother, I found out later in life, was one of wanting someone to love but not really knowing how to make it work. My mother was much the same. She went from a verbally angry man in my father to a verbally and physically angry man in my stepfather. My stepfather, Alan, who was also dealing with his demons and lack of self-confidence, which he took out on us, had no tolerance of disobedience. Children should be seen and not heard, was his way of bringing us up. My mother was simply pleased she had a man she could rely on. So, I was born in England to a Scottish mother, Irish father, and they split up. My mother got into a relationship with my stepfather and we moved to Wales because he was Welsh. And after a year in a private rental home, we ended up in a caravan for several months because we were waiting for council housing. I didn't mind living in the caravan. It was an adventure, although I suppose these days you'd think we were homeless. Eventually we got a council house and we were settled in school. However, the main issue as children was that the arguments over lack of money, the fear of not having enough money and the confrontations it caused affected my approach well into adulthood. I learned to keep myself out of the way as soon as voices started to be raised. My survival instinct was to stay quiet and hide, a tactic that I've taken a long time to overcome as it's not supportive in open, close relationships. After a few years in the council house, my parents took over the management of the local social club and then later a pub. I was in secondary school by this point, and although I had some friends, I didn't really feel close to anyone. I never went on sleepovers or school trips. I was ashamed of how little money we had. I felt lonely and often went to the local park on my own, just to get away from the bickering parents, but that only reinforced my lack of belonging and self-worth. I had no one to go with me. Alan, my stepfather, got more verbally, physically abusive if he'd been drinking. I learned from an early age to stay out of his way, more so if he had a drink. There were violent episodes where he'd take a belt to us if we'd misbehaved. I figured if I did as I was told, stayed quiet, kept out of the way, I was safe. My sister and brother weren't so obliging and felt the back of his belt or hand quite a few times. The most terrifying time was one evening after we'd closed the pub for the night. My parents were in an argument. I don't know what it was about, but Alan was trying to strangle my mother. I was beside myself with terror, but I got the courage to phone the police. It was a night I'll never forget, when the police arrived and calmed things down. The escalation in violence at this time simply reinforced and cemented my survival reactions whenever there was an argument. This has caused issues in my relationships, and I'd simply shut down, not say anything if there was a disagreement. I realise now that doesn't help in resolving the matter, as the other person doesn't know what you're thinking about and sees you as avoiding the issue. It's taken a while and lots of inner work to get to the stage.
So, Leo. Where's Leo? Leo's hiding there. Leo Lazarus is going to read some poetry called Shed the Sea. Welcome.
Thanks very much. Hi everyone. We've actually got two things tonight. and I'll start with Shed the Sea. I've been writing and reading a lot of poetry about the bush. This is one of those, and then I'll read something else. The water is rushing off the rocks. Great sheets of stone shed the sea, lifted bodily from the depths, hungry for the kiss of air and sun. Ceaseless breakers pound the gates of the outer reef's coral rim, that far-living wall which keeps the peace between harbour and ocean. Sharp-beaked herons watch the rapids like a pair of salmon-hungry bears, and on the outcrop one wrestles a fish skinny and tenacious as it wraps itself around the very thing that caught it, to hold a little longer to what it knows of life. People swim to the island and yell and scream. Coconut oil wafts from my skin. Palm fronds hang low in the breeze. Shells crawl along the rock pools on hidden hermit limbs. The water is rushing off the rocks, even as they sink onto their beds. The herons are statues, until the moment they follow their beaks and are lightning. Thank you. And the other piece, I felt very fitting when I heard a couple of the early readers, Veronica and Jackie. It's called A Woman's Strength. A woman's strength, so far from man's monopoly of the word as to be near incomprehensible to him. Not showy or showed off, nor polished and shined like a machine, not inspected and talked of and toyed with, not flexed and favoured and fabled. A woman's strength is hot coiled steel, supple and unassuming, fully unwound, there, taut and hard, giving the unaware or falsely bold an impression of yielding in the way it spooled through their hands as they let love fall to the floor, before they saw the metal when she sprang back to her feet. Her sort of strength perplexing to a weak man, the kind of man who angers at perplexion, and there is no anger like a weak man's anger. A woman's strength is an old heart which has vitalised a body for a century, yet still pumps. It is that which keeps on going when strong men sit and weep, which feels so sharp life's wounds, cut by friend and family alike, by dull men with hard words, big men with small worlds, quick men with no time to comprehend a life with feeling. To know a moment of woman's strength which births each agonising life with a flood of pain and awe, while the weak man strides the bar, the average man the corridor, appalled to see the woman they've not seen, full of fear and power, driven by her hot steel heart and her strength to love. Thank you.
Steve Dagata, your turn. Songs. Are you going to sing for us? Ooh.
My voice holds it. Now, I'm not known for my singing, so I just want to lower expectations here. And I haven't made it easy on myself. So the first song I'm doing is a parody of Nat King Cole's Unforgettable, which I call Unforgivable. Unforgivable, that's what you are. Unforgivable, though near or far. Like the stench of hate that clings to me, how the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgivable in every way, and forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgivable thinks that I am unforgivable too. The second one is A Christmas Carol, and I was going to hold this over to the next one, but I can't make the next one because my daughter's high school graduation. And I actually wrote this one last year to do it at the Christmas one and I missed it. So, like many people, I'm sick of these Christmas songs that go on about snow and ice and frost when we're in Australia. So I've taken, again, I haven't made it easy. I've taken the Christmas song, which is one, you know, chestnuts roasting, and I've made that into an Australianised that. So here we go. Lamb chops sizzling on an open grill. The sun is beating down your door. Christmas carols being sung by a choir. And folks dressed down in summer clothes. Everybody knows smoked ham and an ice cold beer make a balmy day feel right. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. You can join in now if you like, it's the same. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Though it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
Marcello
I'm
has
going to try without the stick.
poetry. You're going to come with that stick?
No, the stick can stay there. Now, I won't be talking about Genostra tonight because I'm mad with Rupert Murdoch. Yes. You might remember that 2 or 3 months ago, I came to Australia to mastermind the political assassination of Malcolm Turnbull. And he went back to actually the Island Island looking for a place to have his daughter's 50th birthday. So he goes to Genostra because he wanted private, and of course there is no place big enough for it. So he goes to the nearest island, which is 4 kilometres square, mind you, but where every in the summer 5 of the richest men in the world are always there, you know, with the new mega yachts. So he finished up, to cut a long story short, that he basically kicked everybody out of the island, gave each tourist that was renting 1,500 euro, which is approximately 2,000 euros, and hired all the electrical means of transport. So for 10 days he took over the island. That reminds me when the FBI took over Genostra. Yeah, but I lived that because I was indirectly involved in that, with the FBI taking over Genostra. So many moons ago, I was supposed to have an exhibition on a boat, on a ship, but unfortunately I was rushed to hospital to have a hernia operation. And a young friend, a female friend that I really was a special friend, spent a lot of time keeping me company. But it never dawned to me that maybe to her I was a bit more than a friend. Then she went back to Italy, and I went as far as Sydney, and we kissed goodbye. I always remember with the notes of Fleetwood Mac, the Albatross, which is appropriate. So not long ago, then 40 years later, we caught up again in Melbourne. Yes, we became friends, and then she went back. A daughter was born and she called Marcella, but it's not my daughter, believe you me. But that caused a lot of problems and a lot of explaining to her. So I then went back. Every time I go to Italy, I go and spend some time with the family. Yeah. Marcella calls me Dad. Don't ask me why. No, they split up, unfortunately. So this is a poem that, in a way, goes, it's like this. I call it my friend, my dear treasured friend. I look at you lying in your bed, alone and sad like a child, already grown up, and think of the beauty that I could create if I had in my arms your black and young head to cover it with small, delicate kisses. I look at you and think of the beauty that I could create if I would express the joy that I feel in staying here, seated near you at the foot of the bed, and talk of trivial matters. I look at you and think of the beauty that I could create if I would tell you just how much I love you. But I remain still, silent, respecting those words that you yourself said one day. These are thoughts that cannot be revealed to a friend. Memories. Unfortunately, I can't even read it because when I printed a few minutes ago, my printer was playing up. It's called Memories of the Beginning. From dark till light, entwined like two young teenagers at their first encounter, we sat on a park bench. What did we do? I cannot fully remember. Only a vague memory of fireworks in the night and the distant sound of the brass band. But I do remember welcoming dawn very tired and with a big smile on our faces. Can't remember.
Thanks, Marcello. Alison. I think it's a really important thing, actually. All of us would wish that we knew more stories from our grandparents.
Hello, I fit into that category. My first time here, I have plenty of stories about the past, but unfortunately I've just chosen one. I've been up to Arnhem Land, Kakadu and Darwin, Bathurst Island, and I have just written a short story which I chose at random. It's about show day in Darwin, and I haven't been to a show day in Melbourne for 30 years since my children were teenagers. And I was persuaded my friends to go because they said it's bound to be different. We decided to go to the dog canine dressage. We made our way to the dog dressage area. Sure enough, there in a shady assembly area were beautifully groomed dogs of every breed and size, ready to be put through their paces by their owners. They have a very similar event at Flemington, I was told. Before us, a fairly large arena was a complicated course consisting of jumping fences, large tubes ladders, poles, seesaws, etc. It looked like a course. It was a cross between a miniature horse jump and a downhill slalom. The first competitor was an Afghan hound that looked in the pink of condition. The owner was a middle-aged man proudly leading his dog to the starting position and signalled him to sit and stay. At the start of the signal, and much to the surprise of the owner, who ran along with his dog, singling turns, leaps and tunnelling where needed. The silky coat of the hound shone beautifully in the sunlight. Plenty of marks there, I thought, for appearance. Of course, there were a couple of obvious areas where the hound went up the ladder the wrong way and had to quickly repeat the climb. Both owner and Afghan hound finished together, receiving a burst of applause from the crowd. The second competitor was a large King Charles Cocker Spaniel with beautiful Julia Robert eyes and with well-groomed ears in the colour of red Pindon soil. The owner was a woman wearing a blue two-piece suit. Mercifully, she was wearing flat shoes. A silver thread ran through the fabric of her suit. She must be a bit eccentric, I thought, as I watched her flash round the course. The spaniel finished well ahead of his owner, whose straight knee-length skirt seemed to inhibit running in any shape or form. I felt that if only she'd have worn jeans, owner and dog might have crossed the finishing line together. So anything goes for the owners crossed my mind, and I was right. The next half dozen female competitors all wore 1950s single lapel straight suits with some sparkle. The younger dog owner had green sequins on the lapels and a matching line of sequins down the back of her pleated skirt. Were these outfits the equivalent of Ascot in the tropics? It was 35 degrees. The style so impeded the owner of the sleek greyhound that she could not keep up and virtually had to chase her dog randomly around. The greyhound, not being able to hear any of the commands or see any important hand signals, ran and twisted as it leapt around in a joyous, chaotic dash. Privately, I did not think that sequence made up for the greyhound having gamely done all the jumps, but not necessarily in the right order. Needless to say, a young man wearing shorts and a t-shirt led his Kelpie to victory. Even as the blue ribbon gold medal was presented, I noticed the female owners outglinted the gold medal. I wondered if I had not quite understood the way the top end viewed the place of the canine event in the social calendar of the Northern Territory. After all, it was a public holiday. But my friends said to me the Darwin show was bound to be different.
I've got this vision of all these people running around in suits. Pamela is going to read some more of her memoir, Returning to Europe.
The glasses on. Right. The story continues. The ballet had just finished a 6-month tour of the Far East and were returning to Europe. Landing at Athens airport, I shuddered at the memory of my last time here when I was ordered to strip as we were leaving. Spasmodic memories floated through my mind, Sam long gone, and the wonderful walks I'd enjoyed with Denise as we explored the highlights of the city. But this was now, with the pressing matter of making new can-can costumes. The city and casino hadn't changed, although the small pool, containing fresh water without a frog in sight, was an invitation for a quick dip when I was tired or needed a break. The dressing room was large, the perfect place to cut out the full length circular skirts. But was this the best solution? No. I decided to make the bodices first, which required loads of hand sewing, easy to do in my room, and cut out the skirts towards the end of the month. Machining them in Italy was the best plan. Leon had been a great mentor, but the decisions this time were mine. Making a pattern from the bodice was difficult. I couldn't unpick one as we danced in them at night. Made in 8 sections, it was time-consuming, taking longer than expected, and thoughts of returning home were uppermost in my mind. Make the costumes to the best of my ability and leave the ballet with a good reputation. Zigzagging each section and careful to pin them in the correct place, it was time to fit on the girls. They howled, "No, not so tight please, I can't breathe." Ignoring their pleas, I double-stitched the seams, ensuring they wouldn't burst open under the strain of energetic kicks. Decorated with the white crystal stones, it was a joy to see the finished design on the black velvet bodices. "Brilliant," Robert declared when I showed him the finished creation. "But when are you going to do the skirts?" "I'll cut them out here and machine them in Italy. We've got to perform a special gala at the end of the month in Campione d'Italia, and if you could finish them in time, I'd like to use them." This was not good news. I'd have to work like hell to do it. "I can't promise, but I'll do my best," I replied. Spurred on with the news, I worked like a rocket, cramming in every second available to sew or machine with no room for errors. Halfway through the month, we were told that there was a new government law. Artists appearing at the casino had to perform their numbers at the TV station without payment. No one complained, but they did rush the televising with no retakes, completing them in one day, a small consolation. I was dreading the departure at the airport, but Robert surprised us. We never knew if the agents or Robert arranged our travel. He was an astute negotiator, and when he declared, "We're taking a cruise ship for 2 days to get to Italy," we were thrilled. No strip searching at the airport. Bliss. Leaving Athens on the small ship, crowded with Greeks and Italians, we sunbathed by the pool, visited the miniature casino, ate in the buffet, and at night watched the ocean waves glisten under the reflection of a full moon and sparkling stars. My first Mediterranean cruise, and I loved every minute. Arriving in Italy, taxis were waiting to take us on the 3-hour journey north. It was a blistering hot day, and as I entered the taxi, mozzies began to attack, attracted to my royal blood. The battle began. Cherry, armed with her magazine, bonked me on the head, screaming as the other 2 girls continued the rescue, throwing papers at whatever they could find at them. The enemy was outnumbered and flew out of the window. Bitten twice, I soon recovered, and we resumed our journey. Surrounded by mountains and situated on Lake Lugano, Campione d'Italia is a picturesque village of 2,000 inhabitants. It is in Italy, but under Swiss administration, who boast it has the largest casino in Europe. A dull, brown building with none of the decor and history of Monte Carlo, but the location was beautiful with stunning views of the lake. Management were pleased with the show and there were no rehearsals. Sightseeing was out of the question as I raced against the clock to finish the skirts, petticoats and frilly pants. Machining for days, my back ached through the heavy workload.
Now, is there anyone else who didn't put their name down who would like to read? Yes? After Richard, okay?
Thank you, Blaise. Last time I was here, I told Blaise I was going to read a poem called Jigsaw, but the bell ringer got us before I got there, so this time I better do it first. I've got... you see the problem, don't you? Anyway, I've got 3 pieces, which will be a bit different to what you've heard before. Tonight's readers, I mean. Anyway, the first one for Blaise is Jigsaw. How testing is the task we face to make the pieces fit as we approach life's jigsaw, our own picture, bit by bit. If we are blessed with fortune and we quickly find a blend of matching colours close at hand that make each tile a friend, they slowly start the picture and with confidence it grows. The more we build, the easier to see where each piece goes. But sometimes at life's table, there's a piece that's out of reach. We know full well we need it for our lives to be complete. We know precisely where it fits, the colours tell us so. But if it's unattainable, we have to let it go. And sadly, it's too often so in life's imperfect mile. We can't complete the picture for the lack of one small tile. The second one is entitled Tears. Tears well unto the eyes, recalling yet the happy times of long ago, surrounded by the beauty and simplicity of carefree youth. Days in the sun without a care, days when we still believed the hazards of life's road were not for us. But all that changed. 'Twas gradual at first, as childhood drifted quietly away, and we became a part of life's eternal river with its rapids, and the banks withdrew beyond our reach, as yet the swollen torrent bore us, rushing now upon its breast towards the endless sea. How sweet the memories of all that came before we realised those golden days were just a prelude to what was in store for us, our destiny, our predetermined journey from the fields of joy, the days of childhood innocence, unto life's dark reality. tears well from deep within. We shed them silently in rivulets. Tears well in thinking of those well-remembered days, the days of long ago that are no more. And maybe Marcello might be able to identify with this. The last one is called If We Should Ever Meet Again. Do you ever wonder what would happen if we should ever meet again? Would it be like the first time or the last? They both seem so long ago, and yet it is the first time I recall, when we were in the springtime of our lives. The days seemed longer then, the road seemed straight and true, and yet life overtook us with its twists and turns and undergrowth along the verges of the road, more dense each mile until it blocked our long shared view of life's true common goal. You went your way and I went mine, yet, looking back, I don't recall the reason. What went wrong, if anything? Perhaps it was just time for both of us to scan life's landscape as it lay outstretched before us. We drifted, and our lives took different paths to different destinations. But what if once again our paths should cross? If we had time to pause, reflect, and exchange the stories of our lives, would we change anything? Or simply look upon those early days with fondness, born of love, and wonder why?
Thanks, Richard. So we have Clemmy to read a poetic story called The Honey Man. Welcome.
Hello. I'm an American, and just to clear the air, I voted for Hillary. And I've had the honor to be living a little bit out in the bush in an art residency because my husband's a landscape painter. And of course, in an area like that, you meet a lot of creatives and all sorts of people. And this story is about a person that I met there who inspired me. It's called The Honey Man. There was a time when I thought to change the world, one needed to fix all things at once. I used to run around a lot, frantic, darting, dashing, running from place to place, believing that I could save the world with my petitions and conferences and late-night debates, running from place to place, afraid if I stopped, the pain would be unbearable. But then I met Bob Mitchell. One late afternoon, he led me into his little valley so I could buy some honey. As we walked down the dusty road, I saw where he had scooped out the earth to make a pond for the birds, who were sitting close by, watching. At the bottom of the hill, there were flowers blossoming into a sensation of color and bees and butterflies fluttering all around him. And I imagine Bob every morning strolling past them, daydreaming, humming to himself. But that was before I learned about the bush and cycles and decay and rebirth. Now I envision him bent over, pulling out vines coiled like snakes, yanking and tugging, his coffee by his side, Snowy his dog not far away, then striding off to his shed, resolute, determined. That day, as we walked farther into the valley, he led me past a chook house leaning to the left and a greenhouse with a recycled door stamped KFC. The door opened into a room filled with spiny cacti clustered in botanical families. Then he steered me into a big shed, a landscape of broken, rusted tools, a workstation for repairing old radios, cars, trucks, and a nesting place for sparrows. And as we went farther, we arrived at the sanctuary where he kept his honey. In the quiet, cool darkness, 2 vats stood, burnished and dented from years of use. I handed him my plastic container empty of its supermarket honey. He grimaced, shaking his head, his lips twisted and chafed. Then he alerted me to the perils of commercial honey, and about the dying bees and the flowers that feed them, and the trees that bear them shade, and the birds that are part of everything. His eyes told me a story of a seed turning into a tree, then the tree dissolving into the earth again. He put my shameful container under the spout, and his own eyes started gleaming with something like lust as he watched the thick honey, thicker than maple syrup, the color of very old gold, flow from the little tap. And when I plunged my finger in and took a lick of that warm, buttery honey that he had perfected over 53 years, I thought, this is how you save the world, by loving it little by little.
Thanks, Claire. Great. What was that fact we found out about mandarins?
If you have pips in your mandarin, because humans have genetically made mandarins without pips, yeah? So you don't get pips. But if you get a pip in your mandarin, it's because the mandarin farm is near an orange farm, because orange needs bees to pollinate. And the bees go across to the mandarins. So if you've got a pip in your mandarin, it means a bee has touched that tree.
It's been pollinating the fruit.
If you get a pip, the seedless one, then no bees have touched your tree.
That's a bit of trivia. Yeah. We were sitting out the back one day and saying, why is it sometimes you get lots of mandarins with no pips, and then sometimes you'll get one and they've got like every single slither has a pip.
And I was thinking, how do mandarins keep growing if they're seedless? Then no more trees would come. Then, of course.
Anyway, a bit of trivia. So next time you're watching Who Do You Want to Be a Millionaire or something, it might come up. As you all know, we have a fellowship every year. All of the entries or the applications were due yesterday. So as always with these things, overnight Les's mailbox was full with lots of people applying. So at our Christmas open mic night next month, which is our 60th open mic night, it's also our last for the year and our Christmas dinner, we will be announcing our fellow, or we haven't worked out what the female word for fellow is, have we? No, anyway, our fellow. The fellow gets $500 cash, which it actually comes from your entry. You know how you pay $5 to come? That money goes towards the fellowship. The applicant also has use of Busybird spaces for the year of 2019, as well as mentorship with someone who they choose from Busybird, as well as entry to all of our workshops. And if they want to do anything with our space, they can do that as well. So we think it's pretty good. I wouldn't call it a prize, but I suppose it is a prize. $500 isn't a huge amount of money, but for a little place like this, I think it's pretty good. But in actual fact, I think the mentorship is actually priceless. So for our Christmas party, so open mic night usually starts at 7. For our Christmas party, it starts at 6:30. It's bring a plate, so we will actually have food, and then we will start the actual readings at 7:30. So it's whoever wants to come, you just bring a plate. You don't have to say whether you're coming or not. The last couple of years, we've had about 60 people, I think. So it's been really fun. Now you have to dress up. The theme this year is to come as a favourite character from a story or an author, favourite author. So you don't have to come fully dressed. You could just have something on you that signifies that person. But it's a bit of fun anyway. And there will be a prize for best costume.
No more than one Harry Potter, please.
I'm going to read a little bit from my childhood memoir, which I launched in August. And then, unless there's anyone else who I've missed, have I missed anyone for readings? No. Have I missed anything to tell people about? Don't think so. Okay, this story is called Blood and Bone. Marky brought mail from town. Mama was sad after reading a letter because her granny died. I couldn't really remember Granny Whitehead very well, only a little old lady with white hair. I knew that's not why she was called Whitehead. That's Mama's name from when she was born. Mama walked down to the river to be by herself and have a good cry. That was the best thing to do when you were sad. She was sad because she loved her granny, and her granny looked after her when her own mama was too busy. Granny Whitehead made Mama feel special when her own mama was mean to her. This seemed to be the day for people dying, because on the radio we heard Elvis died sitting on the dunny doing a poo. Will Elvis be in the Blood and Bone now? Cuzzy asked. We tried not to laugh when he said things like this, but it was hard because he was always saying something funny, and then we got into trouble for showing off. It was good to see Mama laugh after crying about her granny. When she laughed, her eyes crinkled up like mine. Actually, Granny Whitehead didn't die the same day as Elvis. It took a while for the letter to come from Melbourne to the Cobargo post office, which meant that she probably died a few weeks before. Mama was sad about that too. She didn't get to say goodbye, and she was being happy in the bush, not even realising that her granny was gone. To make us feel better, Marky made strawberry junket, my favourite. It took a long time to set, but the kookaburras had just started laughing. So hard, I expected them to fall out of the trees. When they laughed like this, we knew that it was only 10 minutes until it got dark, and then we'd have dinner, and the strawberry junket would be set. You could set your clock by those birds. Mama didn't seem so sad anymore, now that she'd had a good cry. I wanted to ask her if Granny Whitehead was going to be in the Blood and Bone like Elvis, but I didn't know if she'd like that question. Only Cuzzy knew how to ask these things, maybe because he didn't think too long about it before he asked. Okay, it is now time. Now, one more thing. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to anyone who's on our email list. So if you are not on it and would like to be, we have an email list up on the table there so you can add to it. If you all have your tickets, your door tickets, we are going to draw out the 3 prizes. I'll go for Les's Pride first. Les is up the back there. He might sign it for you if you want it. So A90 black. Have you got it? Oh, do you want one?
Signed copy.
Do you want one of the others? Healthy.
Have mine.
Yep. Come on down. Orange. Oh, red actually. A98. Anyone got that? Yes? Have you got that? You haven't got his book, have you? No, you have now, so you can get him to sign it. If he's, you know, for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Black A94.
I've got 93.
Yes. Healthy body. What a surprise, free books at a publisher. Thanks everybody. We'll look forward to seeing those of you who can make it to our last of the year next month. What's the date, Les? 21st? 21st of November. It's always the 3rd Wednesday of the month. Okay. Feel free to hang around, have a cup of tea, coffee, more wine. I think there's some whiskey there too if you really want to get down to it. Finish off all the food, just hang around. Thank you.